Okay, hi guys. So I'm gonna read more of this novel. I'm gonna tweet out that I'm streaming right now. Okay, so let's get started. I think we were on page 30 last time, so I need to scroll up. Okay, that was weird. 28, 29, 30. Okay. Okay, part 4. Apparently, the girl naming herself Index had a habit of biting people when she was mad. Ow, you bit me all over. What are you, a mosquito at a camp? He received no response. Index was naked and wrapped in a blanket. She was sitting with her legs bent back to the sides while futilely attempting to return her clothes to their original form by sticking safety pins into pieces of the nun's habit. The sound effect dawn seemed to dominate the room. It was not that a newsstand user had attacked. Princess, this may be presumptuous of me, but have a button-down shirt and pants you could wear. She stared at him with snake-like eyes. Princess, what kind of character is this she's playing? What? She replied when he called out to her again. A reference to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Okay. Okay. I was completely the one at fault there. The only response he received was an alarm clock flying at him. Kamichu shrieked as a giant pillow flew at him as well. To make matters even more ridiculous, a video game system, a small radio, came flying his way as well. How can you talk at me like normal after something like that happened? No, it was quite concerning. It was quite the concerning event for this old man as well. But that's youth for you. You're making fun of me. Ugh. Okay, I'm sorry. Don't bite that rental video like it's a handkerchief, you idiot. Kamijo Tuma bowed down to the ground with both his hands, straightforward like it was part of some kind of joke. Deep down, Kamijo felt like his heart was being crushed in someone's grip over having seen a girl naked for the first time. However, Kamijo Toma was the type to not show it on his face. Or so he thought, but he would have been quite surprised at what he saw if he looked in the mirror. Done. While triumphantly blowing air from her nose, Index spread out the pure white nun's habit that had somehow regained its original form from that hellish do-it-yourself job. Dozens of safety pins glittered across the nun's habit. Sweat. Are you gonna wear that? Silence. You're gonna wear that, Iron Maiden? Tears. In Japanese, we call it a bed of needles. I get it, apologized Kamijo as he head-butted the floor with all his might. Meanwhile, Index stared at him like a bullied child that was about to bite through the power cord to the television. Was she a naughty cat? I'll wear it. I'm a nun. Kamijo was not quite sure what sense that made, but Index started changing by squirming around inside the blanket wrapped around her such that she looked like a caterpillar. Her head was the only thing sticking out of the blanket, and it was as red as a bomb. This reminds me of when we had to change for the pool at school. Why are you looking at me? At least look the other way. Why does it matter? Compared to what happened before, just changing isn't all that arousing. Index suddenly stopped moving, but when Kamijo did not seem to notice, she gave up and started changing inside the blanket again. She was so focused on what was going on inside the blanket that she did not notice at all when her blood fell off her head. Oh, her hood fell off her head, sorry. The awkward atmosphere of a silent elevator took over the room. Kamijo's mind had started to flee from reality, but then the term supplementary lessons floated up into his mind. Wow, that's right. I have supplementary lessons. Kamijo glanced at the clock on his cell phone. I have to get to school. So what are you going to do? If you're going to stay here, I can give you a key. The option of simply kicking her out had disappeared from his mind. Since Index's walking church nun habit had reacted to the Imagine Breaker, she clearly had some connection to the supernatural that meant that not everything she had been telling him was a lie. It was possible she had really fallen off from the roof because she was being chased by magicians. It was possible she really would have to continue playing a deadly game of tag. It was possible wizards from a picture book or something crazy like that really were running amok in the city of science where established theories about espers existed. And even if those things were not true, he did not want to just abandon Index. That's okay, I'll leave. However, Index stood straight up and made that dramatic announcement. She then slid past Kamiju's side like a ghost. She showed no sign of noticing that her hood had fallen from her head, but if Kamiju tried to pick it up, he would likely cause it to fall to pieces. No, not that, Index turned around. If I stay here, they will likely come after me. You don't want your room to blow up, do you? That smoothly delivered response left Kamiju speechless. As Index slowly exited the front door, Kamiju frantically ran after her. He wanted to do something, so he checked his wallet, found that he had only 320 yen left. He ran after Index to give her what little he had, but his little toes struck the door frame at the speed of sound as he tried to exit the front door. Ben yeah. As Kamiju held his foot and let out the strange cry, Index turned around in shock. As Kamiju writhed around in great pain, his cell phone fell from his pocket at the exact moment he realized that the LCD screen struck the hard floor as he heard the crack of a fatal blow. Such misfortune. I'd say that was clumsiness, not misfortune, said Index with a slight smile. But if this Imagine Breaker is real, it may be inevitable. Why can't I pronounce that word? Inevitable. Inevitable. What do you mean? This is related to the world of magic, so I doubt you'll believe me, said Index with a giggle. But if the divine protection of God and the rising string of fate actually exist, then wouldn't your right hand negate all those things? Index shook her safety pin-covered nun's habit and added, the power of this walking church was a blessing of God after all. Wait, what we call fortune and misfortune are just matters of probability and statistics. What are you talking about is completely... Oh, no. What you're talking about is completely... The second he said that, Kamiju's finger touched the doorknob and was shocked by static electricity. What? He cried out at his body as his body twitched reflexively. The odd way his muscles moved caused a cramp in his right calf. The agony left him incapacitated. The agony left him incapacitated. Why can't I pronounce words? Left him incapacitated for about 600 seconds. Okay, sorry. Sister, yes, please explain. There is not much to explain, said Index, as if it was obvious. If what you said about your right hand is true, then merely having is enough to be continually negating the powers of fortune. Do you mean what I think you mean? Just by touching the air, your right hand is giving you more and more misfortune. Yeah, such misfortune. Kamiju did not believe in the occult, but things were different when it was related to misfortune. At any rate, Kamiju was the type of person to whom nothing he did ever turned out well. It was the point that he felt like the entire universe was out to get him. Meanwhile, a pure white in her eyes was what people call an inviting look. Wouldn't the real misfortune be having been born with that power? The smiling nun brought tears to Kamiju's eyes, and he had finally realized the conversation had gone off track. What? That's not it. Do you have somewhere to go once you leave here? I don't know what situation you're in, but you could just hide here if these magicians or whatever are nearby. If I stay here, the enemies will come here. How can you be sure? If you just stay in my room and don't draw any attention to yourself, there shouldn't be a problem. That's not true. Index pinched her cheeks and her clothes. This walking church functions using magic power. The church seems to call it divine power, but it's the same mana. Simply put, the enemies seem to be searching for the magic power of the walking church. What are you wearing clothes that act like a tracking device? Oh, why are you wearing clothes that act like a tracking device? I told you its defensive power is Pope class, remember? Your right hand tore it to pieces, though. You tore it to pieces, though. I said I was sorry, so don't look at me with those tearful eyes. But Imagine Breaker destroyed that walking church, right? So shouldn't tracking device-like functionality be gone too? Even if it was, they will know the walking church was destroyed. As I said before, its defensive power is Pope class. Simply put, it's like a fortress. If I was the enemy, I would make an appearance when that fortress was destroyed, whatever the reason might be. Wait a second, that's all the more reason I can just let you go. I still don't believe in the occult, but if someone is after you, I can just let you leave. Index stared blankly at him. From just that look, she truly seemed like nothing more than a normal girl. Then will you follow me to the depths of hell? She smiled. It was such a heartbreaking smile that Kamichu was left speechless for an instant. Index had used kind words to implicitly say, "Do not come with me." Don't worry, I am not alone. If I can escape to the church, they will shelter me. So where's this church? In London. That's a long way. How far are you planning to run? Oh, don't worry. I think there's a few branches in Japan, replied Index as her nun's habit that looked the result of a bullied wife fluttered. A church? There might be one in the city. The term church brought to a mind of a giant wedding hall, but the examples in Japan were pretty shabby. First of all, the culture had little to do with Christianity. Also, a country with so many earthquakes had few historical buildings. The church Kamiju had seen out of train windows had all been small prefab buildings with a cross on the top. He had a feeling that he was mistaken in thinking those were Novu rich churches, though. Oh, but it can't be any church. It has to be the British style I belong to. There are a lot of different kinds of Christianity, said Index with a bitter smile. First, there is a distinction between the old-style Catholics and the new-style Protestants. Also, while I belong to the Catholics, there are various types of them as well. For example, there is a Roman Catholic Church centered on the Vatican, the Russian Orthodox Church with its headquarters in Russia, and the Anglican, Anglican Church with its core at St. George's Cathedral. What happens if you accidentally go to the wrong church? They would turn me away, said Index with the same bitter smile. The Russian Orthodox Church and the Anglican Church primarily exist with their respective countries, so Anglican churches are rare in Japan. Things were not looking good. Was it possible Index had tried going to church after church before she collapsed from hunger? What had she been feeling as she fled while being turned away at each church she went to? Don't worry, I just have to keep at it until I find a British-style church. For just an instant, Kamiju thought about the power in his right hand. Hey, if you're ever in any trouble, you can stop by here again. That was all he could say. He had the power to kill even God, and yet that was all he could say. Sure, I'll stop by if I'm hungry. Her sunflower-like smile was so perfect that Kamijo could not say anything in response. And then a cleaning robot passed by, having to go out of his way to avoid Index. Yeah? That perfect smile was blown away in an instant. Index jumped as if she had a cramp in her leg and then tipped backward with a horrible sounding thud. Her head struck the wall behind her. Some weird thing just showed up like it was nothing. Index had tears in her eyes. Where was I? Sorry. Something weird just showed up like it was nothing. Index had tears in her eyes, but she completely forgot to even hold the back of her head as she shouted out, "Don't point at it and call it weird. It's just a cleaning robot." Kamijo sighed. Its size and shape were similar to a drum container. It had small tires on the bottom and a circular rotating mop similar to those of a street cleaner. It had cameras in order to avoid people and other obstacles, so they were quite hated by girls in miniskirts. I see. I had heard Japan was a leading nation in technology, but I didn't know you had made mechanized agations. Hello, Kamijo. Hello, Kamijo was a bit frightened by how impressed Index seemed. This is Academy City. You can find those things all over the city. Academy City, yes. It's a city made by buying up the entire western area of Tokyo, where development has slowed the name comes from the fact that it had dozens of universities, and an Agathion is a familiar spirit that appears only at midday in the shape of a human or animal, or even within a talisman bottle or magic ring. Universities and hundreds of elementary, middle, and high schools in it. Kamijo sighed. 80% of the residents are students, so all the apartment buildings you see are dorms. He admitted the fact that it had a hidden phase where powers and bodies were developed alongside the studying. That's why the city is a bit odd. The city is overflowing with university experiments. Any chat? No? Okay. Experiments like the automated disposal of kitchen waste, the wind turbines that function well enough to be practical, and the cleaning robots like this one. Thanks to all that, our level of culture is about 20 years ahead of anywhere else. Index carefully examining the cleaning robot. So all the buildings here are part of Academy City. Yep, I guess it might be the best to leave the city if you're looking for an Anglican church. All the churches here are probably teaching institutions for theology or Jungian psychology. Index nodded and then finally brought a hand up to the back of her head where she had hit the wall. Yeah, huh? My hood is gone. Oh, you finally noticed it fell off earlier. Yeah? By earlier, Kamijo had meant when she was changing in the blanket, but Index seemed to mistaken it for when she had tripped backwards in shock over the cleaning robot. She started looking around on the floor, and a question mark appeared over her head. Oh, I know, that electric Agathion. While still mistaken, she made a dash after the cleaning robot and disappeared around the corner of the passageway. What is going on? Kamijo looked at the door to his room where Index's hood was, and then down the passageway. Index was nowhere to be seen. There had been no farewell, tearful or otherwise. From the looks of her, I get the feeling she'll live on if the world is destroyed. He had no proof of that, but nevertheless, that was the thought he had. Okay, I have a handout for you. Follow along while we go through the supplementary lesson. Even after spending an entire term in that class, Kamijo could not still believe it. The homeroom teacher of Year 1, Class 7, Tsukuyomi Komo, Komoi was a ridiculous teacher who was so short that only her head could be seen when she stood behind her desk. That little girl's teacher was out of the school seven mystery. She was 135 centimeters tall. There was a legend saying she was refused riding a roller coaster due to safety concerns, and she looked all the world like a 12-year-old who could be carrying a soprano recorder, and was wearing a yellow hard hat and had a red randosuru. I won't stop you from talking amongst yourselves, but you need to listen to what I say. I put a lot of effort into making a quiz. So if you do poorly on it, you will be punished with the see-through lesson. Sensei, isn't that where you play poker with a blindfold on? That's part of the curriculum for clairvoyance. I've heard that you can't leave until you win 10 times in a row despite not being able to see your cards. So when we just be stuck here until morning, protested Kamijo Tuma. Oh, but Kamijo-chan, you don't have enough development credit, so you'll be doing the see-through lessons regardless. Kamijo was at a loss for words when faced with a salesman's smile of a salaryman teacher. I see. Kamoi-chan finds you so cute, she can't just help herself, Kami-yan, said the blue-haired, pierced-eared male class representative who was sitting next to Kamiju. Do you sense malice coming from that teacher's back as she enjoyably stretches up to reach the blackboard? What's so wrong with having a cute teacher scold you for failing a quiz? Getting physically abused by a little kid like that gets you a ton of experience points, Kami-yan. Blue-haired pierced-eared is a Gomi Pierce in Japan. That sounds like a name, so it is used if it is his name from here on out. I know you were a lolicon, but you're a masochist too. You're really hopeless. Aha. It's not like that. I like lollies. It's that I also like lollies. It's not that I like lollies. It's that I also like lollies. It's also... okay, whatever. Kamiju almost shouted out, you're omnivorous. But he was interrupted. You two over there, if you say a single word more, you'll be stuck with Columbus's egg. Just as one would expect, Columbus's egg involves standing on a raw egg upside down on a desk without anything supporting it. Those specializing in psychokinesis could keep the egg from falling when they work to the point of the blood vessels in their brain almost bursting. It was actually an extremely difficult challenge because the egg would break if the psychokinesis was too powerful. As with the previous example, you could be stuck there until morning if you could not do it. Kamiju and Agomi Pierce stared at Tsukuyomi Komoe while forgetting to breathe. Okay, her smile was quite frightening. While Komoe-sensei loved being called cute, she got incredibly angry when called small. However, she did not seem to mind being looked down on by students. Part of that was just something that could not be helped. Within Academy City, the city was a veritable neverland, where over 80% of the population was students. The opposition to salaryman teachers was harsh even compared to a normal school, and more importantly, the strength of a student was based on both their academic ability and their power. The teachers were the ones that developed the students, but the teachers themselves had no power. Some, like the PE teachers and guidance counselors, seemed like they were from some foreign unit because they had to train level 3 monsters with their own fists. But it would be cruel to expect that of a chemistry teacher like Komoe. Hey, Kamiyan, what? Would it turn you on to get lectured by Komoe sensei? I'm not you. Shut up already, idiot. If we have to play with a raw egg, even though we don't have psychokinesis, we would be spending our entire summer vacation here, if you get it. But that fake Kansai dialect mouth of yours. Fake? Don't call me fake, I'm really from Osaka. Shut up, I know you're from a rice region. I'm in a bad mood, so don't make me play the straight man right now. I'm not from a rice region. I sure do love takoyaki. Stop trying to force yourself into a Kansai role. Are you going to bring takoyaki for lunch just for this role? What are you talking about? Not even someone from Osaka eats only takoyaki, right? Right, I think that's right. No, wait, but yeah. But huh? Which is it? You're fouling out of character, Mr. Fake Kansai, said Kamijo before sighing and looking out the window. He felt like he should be by Index's side rather than dealing with that pointless supplementary lesson. The walking church nun's habit she wore had indeed reacted to Kamijo's right hand. Although reacting may be an understatement. But that did not mean he believed in magic. Most likely the majority of what Index had said was a lie, and even if she was not lying, she may have been mistaken some natural phenomenon for the occult. Even so, I guess the fish that escapes always seems huge. Kamichu sighed again, but again, if the alternative was being stuck in that desk in that sauna-like classroom that had no air conditioning, charging into a fantasy of swords and magic may have been better. And he even had he was somehow hesitant to say beautiful heroine to go with it. Kamiju recalled the hood Index had forgotten in his room. In the end, he had not returned it. He did not view as it having been unable to return it, but even if Index had disappeared, he would likely have found her even if he seriously started looking for her. And even if he had not, he could still be out there running around the city looking for her with the hood even in one hand. When he thought about it, he realized that he had wanted some kind of connection. I felt that she might come back to get us someday. Because that white girl had shown him such a perfect smile. He had felt that she would disappear like an illusion if he did not leave some kind of connection. He had been afraid, so that's it. After going through slightly poetic thoughts, Kamichu finally realized something. Well, it came down to it, he had not hated that girl who had gotten caught on his balcony. He had liked her enough that he thought of never seeing her again left him with a slight twinge of regret. Ah, damn it. He clicked his tongue with how much she was weighing on his mind. He wished he had stopped her from leaving. Come to think of it, what was with those 103,000 grimoires she mentioned? Index had said that the group called the Magic Cabal was after her. Was a cabal something like a corporation? Seemed to be pursuing her because she wanted those 103,000 grimoires. Apparently, Index had been fleeing with those 103,000 grimoires in her possession. It was not a key or a map to the place where all those books were stored. Let me check chat. When Kamichu had asked where all those books were, she had simply said, right here. However, as far as Kamichu could see, she did not have a single book. At any rate, Kamichu's room was not large enough to hold 100,000 books. What was that all about? Kamichu tilted his head to the side in puzzlement, since Index's walking church nun's habit had reacted to Imagine Breaker. What she was saying was not purely a delusion, but Sensei Kamijo-kun is staring out the window at at the fluttering skirts of the girls' tennis team. Agomi pierces forced Kansai dialects and Kamiju's focus in a U-turn back into the classroom. Komoe sensei fell silent. She seemed to have undergone quite a shock by the fact that Kamiju Toma-kun had not been focused on the lesson. She had the look of a 12-year-old who had just found out the truth about Santa Claus. Just as that thought reached his mind, Kamiju Toma was pierced the hostile gazes from his classmates who wished to protect the human rights of that child. While it was called a supplementary lesson, they had been stuck there until the time when all students were supposed to have left school. Such misfortune, muttered Kamiju, as he gazed at the three propellers of a wind turbine glittering in the sunset. Any kind of nightlife was forbidden, so the last bus and train in Academy City were set to go out when the students were all supposed to have left school. Kamiju missed the last bus, so he was trudging along through the scorching shopping district that seemed to go on forever. A security robot passed by him as he did. It was also a drum on wheels, and it functioned as something like a walking security camera. Then they had originally been improved visions of robotic dogs, but children would gather around them and block their path. For that simple reason, all the work robots had been made into drum container shapes. Ah, there you are, you bastard. Wait up, I'm talking to you, stop. The summer heat had done Kamiju in, so he was just stared at the slowly moving security robot and thought about how Index had run off after a clean robot. Finally, he realized that voice was calling out to him. He turned around to figure out what was going on. It was a middle school-aged girl. Her shoulder-length brown hair glowed a flame red in the sunset, and her face was dyed even redder. She wore a gray pleated skirt, a short-sleeved blouse, and a summer sweater. At that point, she suddenly realized who she was. He suddenly realized who she was. Oh, it's you again, Burry middle schooler. Don't call me Burry. I have a name. It's Misaka Mikoto. Why don't you learn it already? You've been calling me Burry since we first met. Burry is Japanese I can't pronounce that either. Onomatopoeia for an electric shock. Okay. Since we first met, Kamiju thought back. Oh, right. When they had first met, she had been surrounded by delinquents just like the other day. As for the children approached her, she had thought they were after her wallet and stepped forward in an Urashima Toru-esque move. However, for some reason, the girl was the one that got mad, saying, "Shut up! Don't get in the way of other people's fights." Burry. Kamiju had, of course, blocked her Burry with his right hand, and she had responded with, "Huh? Why didn't that work? Then what about this, huh?" One thing had led to another, and things had ended up in her current state. Huh? What? I'm not sad, so why am I crying, mother? Why do you have a distant look in your eyes? Kamiju was exhausted from the supplementary lesson, so he decided not to give much thought on how to deal with this Burry girl. Kamiju was exhausted from the supplementary... Oh, whoops, I already read that. The girl staring at Kamiju's face with a stunned expression is the railgun girl from yesterday. She is also frustrated over losing a single fight, as she had come back to Kamiju again and again to challenge him to a rematch. Who is that explanation for? She is strong-willed and hates to lose, but is actually quite a lonely person and is in charge of taking care of the class pet. Don't tack strange additions onto the setting. The girl Misaka Mikoto flailed her arms around and all focus on the street was dawn. The girl Misaka Mikoto flailed her arms around and all focus on the street was drawn to her. This was not too surprising. The completely normal summer uniform she wore was the uniform of Tokiwadai Middle School, one of the five most prestigious and elite schools in Academy City. For some reason, the explosively refined girls from Tokiwadai seemed to stand apart even in a station at rush hour, so it would surprise anyone to see one sitting on the floor of a train messing around with her cell phone just like anyone else. So what do you want, Buri? Actually, what are you wearing? Why are you wearing your uniform during summer vacation? Do you have supplementary lessons? Shut up. Were you worried about the class bunny? I told you to stop adding in that animal stuff. Also today I'm going to make you twitch like frog legs with electrodes attached. So get your will and inheritance in order. I don't think so. Why not? Because I'm not in charge of my class pet. Why you quit making fun of me? The middle school girl stomped down at the tiles of the footpath. At the exact moment, a tremendous noise came from the cell phones of the people walking along the area. Also, the cable broadcast in the shopping district cut out, and a horrible noise came from the security robot. Okay. The crackling sound of static electricity came from the middle school girl's hair. That level 5 girl who could use a railgun with nothing but her own body smelled such that her canines were bared like a beast. How about that? Oh, sorry. Why not? Because I'm not in charge of my class pet. Why you quit making fun of me? The middle school girl stomped down on the tiles of the footpath. At the exact moment, a tremendous noise came from the cell phone of the people walking along the area. Also, the cable broadcast in the shopping district cut out, and horrible noise came from the security robot. The cackling sound of static electricity came from the middle school girl's hair. That level 5 girl who could use a railgun with nothing but her own body smelled such that her canines were bared like a beast. How about that? Has that changed your cowardly mind? In a frantic attempt to cover her mouth, Kamiju's hand covered Misaka Mikoto's entire composed face. Shut up! Please just shut your mouth. Everyone's cell phones were fried, and they're looking none too pleased. If they found out it was us, they'll make us pay, and I have no idea how much that cable broadcast costs. Due to his recent encounter with that silver-haired nun girl, Kamiju prayed with all his might to the god who he normally only thought of around Christmas. His prayers must have made their way to heaven because no one approached Kamiju and Mikoto. Thank goodness. Kamiju gave a sigh of relief as he continued to suffocate Mikoto. Message error number 100231YF -YF offensive electromagnetic waves in violation of radio detected. System malfunction detected. As this is possible cyber terrorism, avoid using electronics. Imagine breaker and railgun hesitantly turned around. A drum container was on its side on the footpath, spewing smoke as it spoke to itself, nonsensically. In the next instant, the security robots began sounding like a high-pitched alarm. Naturally, they ran away. They entered a back alley, kicked over a dirty plastic bucket, and scared off a black cat as they continued running. Come to think of it, I didn't do anything wrong. Why am I running away with her? Even with that thought, he kept running. After all, he had heard on a talk show that those security robots cost 1.2 million yen each. Such misfortune. Why do I always get caught up in these things having to do with her? What do you mean by that? And my name is Misaka Mikoto. The two had finally come to a stop in a back alley. One of the lined-up buildings must have been demolished because a rectangular area opened up there. It looked like a good place for street basketball. Shut up, Buri. You're the one that destroyed all my electronics with that lightning yesterday. What could you possibly need after that? It's your fault for pissing me off. I don't even understand what has you so mad. I've never even laid a finger on you. Afterwards, Mikoto had attacked Kamijo with everything she had, but Kamijo had stopped it all with his right hand. Her attacks did not end at that railgun. She could twist together collected iron and iron sand to create a whip-like sword of steel, send powerful electromagnetic waves to mess with internal organs, and she could finish it all off by sending real lightning down from the sky. But none of it was matched for Kamijo Tuma. As long as it was supernatural power, Kamijo Tuma could negate it. You just kept coming at me and wore yourself out. Don't use your powers too much, and then blame me when you don't have enough stamina to keep it up, Buri. Mikoto ground her back teeth together. That doesn't count. It can count. You never attacked me. That makes it a draw. Sigh. Fine. It was your win. Punching you isn't going to fix my air conditioner. Gah. Well, wait a second. Take this seriously, shouted Mikoto as she flailed her arms around Kamijo's side. Are you sure you want me taking this seriously? Mikoto trailed off. Kamijo lightly clenched his right fist and then opened it again. A cold sweat started pouring from Misaka Mikoto's entire body at that simple action. She froze in place, unable to make a step backwards. Mikoto did not know what Kamijo's power really was, so Kamijo was truly an unknown horror to her for having sealed all of her trump cards without breaking a sweat. It was not all that surprising. Kamijo Tuma had received Misaka Mikoto's attacks for over 2 hours straight without receiving a single scratch. It was only natural for her to wonder what would happen if he got serious. Kamijo sighed and averted his gaze. As if the strings holding in her place had snapped, Mikoto finally staggered a few steps back. What can I call this other than misfortune? Kamijo was shocked at how frightened she was. For my room's electronics were done in, and then I met that self-proclaimed magician in the morning, and now I meet this Buri Esper in the evening. Magician, what? Kamijo thought for a bit. Yeah, that's what I'd want to know. Normally, Mikoto. Oh, sorry. It was not all that surprising. Kamijo Tuma had received Misaka Mikoto's attacks for over 2 hours straight without receiving a single scratch. It was only natural for her to wonder what would happen if he got serious. Kamijo sighed and averted his gaze, as if the strings holding in her place had snapped. Mikoto finally staggered a few steps back. What can I call this other than misfortune? Kamijo was shocked at how frightened she was. First my room's electronics were done in, then I met the self-proclaimed magician in the morning, and now I meet this girl Buri Esper in the evening. Magician what? Kamijo thought for a bit. Yeah, that's what I want to know. Normally Mikoto would have likely shouted, are you making fun of me? Is your head all as messed up as your power? And then Buri buried. However, she only jumped in fright whenever he looked at her that day. It had only been a bluff to fool her, but he felt about how effective it had been. What was that magician nonsense anyways? Kamiju was reminded of what had happened that morning. That white nun had used that word readily enough. But now that he thought back, the term was definitely removed from reality. I wonder why it didn't seem so strange while Index was around. Had there been some mysterious something there that made it seem more believable? Okay, let me check chat. Oops. Hi, Roy. Okay. Okay, sorry. Let me go back to the book. Oh, whoops. What page was I on? I was near part 6. Sorry, I had to go back. I'm spoiling. Okay. Where was I? I wonder why it didn't seem so strange while Index was around. Had there been some mysterious something there that made it seem more believable? Wait, what am I thinking? Muttered, wait. Sorry. Wait, what am I thinking? Muttered Kamiju while completely ignoring the berry girl named Misaka Mikoto, who was trembling in fear like a puppy. He had cut his ties with Index, and whatever world she lived in, the world was a large place, so it was unlikely he would run into her again into a meaningless coincidence. Thinking about magicians was entirely pointless. Despite that, he could not get it out of his head. He still had that pure white hood she had forgotten in his room. That one remaining connection continued to irritatingly pick at the edges of his mind. Not even Kamiju Tomo knew why he was thinking about it so much. After all, he had the power to kill even God. Okay, let me check OBS. Okay. Those days, part 6. Those days one could not buy even a large gyudon with only 320 yen, regular. The girls who happily ate a bento the size of a light novel would not understand, but a sweating, growing boy saw the regular size as nothing more than a snack. After driving off the Biri girl, Kamiju had headed to a gyudon restaurant to eat his snack. With only 30 yen remaining, tax included, he approached his dorm building with the sun having already set. The place seemed deserted. It was the first day of summer vacation, so everyone was probably out having fun. The building looked like a stereotypical one-room apartment building. Pathways along one wall of the rectangular building had doors lined up on them. The metal railing had no plastic sheets to prevent peering up girls' skirts because it was a guy's dorm. The front doors had balconies on the opposite side, were built on the sides of the building going back as seen from the road. In other words, they were in the gaps between buildings. Okay, let me check OBS. Okay. The entrance to the building was self-locking, but the distance between buildings were only 2 meters. Only one could easily sneak into it by jumping from roof to roof as Index had done that morning. Kamiju went through the self-locking entrance, passed by the storage room known as the door manager's room, and got on the elevator. It was just for fun that the elevator was more cramped and dirty than the elevator for bringing items into a factory. but the R button indicating the roof was sealed with a small metal plate in order to prevent Romeo and Juliet from heading up to the roof night after night. With the microwave oven-like ding, the elevator stopped on the 7th floor. Kamiju pushed aside the door that clanged as it opened and exited into the passageway. He was on the 7th floor, but there was no wind, and it seemed even better and stuffier than before due to the neighboring building being so close. Kamiju finally realized something. Down the straight passageway and right in front of his door, 3 cleaning robots were gathered. Seeing 3 of them was rare. For one thing, he was pretty sure only 5 were ever deployed to that dorm. From the way they were trembling and moving back and forth, they seemed to be cleaning up quite a horrible mess. For some reason, Kamiju had an intense feeling of impending misfortune. Those drum robots had enough power to cleanly rip up gum that was stuck to the floor. So what was giving 3 of them such trouble? Kamiju shuddered at the thought that his neighbor Tsuchimikado Motoharu had gone drunk while acting like a delinquent in order to lose his virginity, and had ended up vomiting in tremendous quantity while using Kamiju's door in place of a telephone pole. What happened? People had an unfortunate tendency to want to see horrible things. After taking a few more subconscious steps forward, he finally saw it. The mysterious girl named Index had collapsed from hunger. He could not see all of her due to the robots being in the way, but someone wearing a white nun's habit covered in glittery safety pins was clearly collapsed face down there. Even though the 3 drums were doing nothing but ramming her, Index was not moving at all. It made her seem the more pitiful, just like if she was being packed at her city by crows. Just like if she was pecked at by city crows. For one, by cleaning robots were made to avoid people and other obstacles. So why was she being treated not as human, even with those machines? I guess this is misfortune too. Kamiju Tuma would have been surprised to see his face in the mirror at that moment. He had a clear smile on his face. He had been worried deep down. He may not have believed her about the magicians, but it was possible some cult was chasing the girl around. He was glad to see her in her usual state, and even ignoring those worries, he was simply happy to see her again. Kamiju then remembered the one thing she had forgotten, the pure white hood he had left not given back to her. He found it strange that he saw that hood like some kind of charm. He found it strange that he saw that hood like some kind of charm. "Hey, what are you doing here?" he called out to her and ran over. Why does just running over put me in the mood of an elementary school kid who can't sleep on the night before a trip? Why does each step I take forward make me feel like I'm headed to the store on the release date of a major RPG? Index had not noticed him. Kamiju threw him off for a smile at how Index-like that was. And then he finally noticed Index was lying in a pool of blood. The first thing he felt was confusion, not shock. He had been unable to see it before because the group of cleaning robots had been in the way. As she lay face down, he could see a single horizontal strike near the bottom of her back. The wound was from a blade, but it was so straight it looked like someone had used a ruler and a box cutter. The end of her waist-length silver hair had been cleanly cut off, and that silver hair was dyed red by the substance flowing from the wound. For an instant, Kamiju was unable to comprehend that it was human blood. The difference in reality between the instant before and the instant after sent his thoughts into chaos. Red, ketchup had Index been using the last drink to suck the ketchup just before she collapsed from hunger. With that pleasant image in his mind, Kamijo almost smiled. He almost smiled, but he did not. There was no way he could. The three cleaning robots continued to move back and forth while making a clanking noise. They were cleaning the stains on the floor. They were cleaning the red substances spreading across the floor. They were cleaning the red substance flowing from Index's body, like digging at a wound with a dirty rag. They were sucking out everything inside Index's body. Stop. Shit. Kamiju's eyes finally came into focus with reality. He frantically grabbed at the cleaning robots gathered around the seriously injured Index. The robots were made unnecessarily heavy to prevent theft, and they had a good bit of horsepower, so he could not tear them away from her. Of course, the cleaning robots were only cleaning the continually spreading stain on the floor, so they never actually touched Index's wound, even though Kamijo saw them as bugs swarming over a festering wound. And yet he was having trouble moving aside even one of those heavy and powerful robots, much less three. While his focus was on one of them, the two would head over for the stain. He was supposed to have the power to kill even God, and yet he was unable to move those toys out of the way. Index said nothing. Her pale purple lips were so still he was not even sure if she was breathing. Shit. Kamijo shouted out in confusion. What happened? What the hell happened? God damn it, who the hell did this to you? That would be us magicians. And that was exactly why the voice coming from behind him was not Index's. Okay, some magic people. Kamijo. Okay, when is the next part? Sorry, I'm scrolling down to the next part. Okay, I'll stop at page 68. Now I have to scroll back up. Kamijo spun his entire body around as if to rush to punch the person. A man was standing there who had come from, no, not the elevator. It seemed he had come from the emergency staircase next to the elevator. The white man was over 2 meters tall, but his face looked younger than Kamijo's. His age was probably 14 or 15, just like Index. His great height was characteristic of foreigners. His clothes were a pure black version of the habits worn by priests in the church. However, it was unlikely you would find anyone who would call that man a priest, even if you searched all across the world. It may have been because he was standing upwind, but Kamijo would smell the horribly sweet perfume on him, even though he was over 15 meters away. His shoulder-length blonde hair had been dyed red like the sunset even. Silver rings glittered on all 10 fingers like brass knuckle. He had poisonous earrings on his ears. A cell phone strap could be seen sticking out of his pocket. A lit cigarette moved at the edge of his mouth. And as if to finish it all off, he had a barcode-like tattoo underneath his right eye. You could not quite call him a priest, and you could not quite call him a delinquent. The air around where the man stood in the passageway was clearly odd. It was like the area was being ruled by completely different rules from the ones that Kamijo had used up until that point. The strange feeling spread out throughout the area like icy tentacles. What Kamijo felt first was neither fear nor anger. It was confusion and unease. It was a desperate loneliness, like his wallet had been stolen in a foreign country where he did not know the language. The icy tentacle-like feeling spread throughout his body and froze his heart. But then Kamichu realized something. This is a magician. This has become a different world where strange things like magicians exist. He could tell at first glance. He still did not believe in magicians, but he could tell this was definitely a resident of somewhere beyond the world he lived in. She got her pretty good. The magician looked around, and the cigarette in the corner of the mouth waggled as he spoke. I heard Kanzaki sliced her, but I thought there wasn't anything to worry about because there was no blood trail. Okay, let me just, okay. Sorry. Okay, yeah. The magician looked at the cleaning robots gathered behind Kamiju Tuma. Most likely Index had been sliced elsewhere and had barely escaped here with her life before collapsing. She must have left fresh blood as she went, but the cleaning robots had cleaned it all away. But why? You mean why she came back here? Who knows? Maybe she forgot something. Come to think of it, she had her hood when I shot her yesterday. Did she lose it somewhere? The magician standing in front of Kamichu had said, "Come back." The magician standing in front of Kamichu had said, "Came back." In other words, he had been following Index's actions all day, and he knew that she had lost her hood in the walking church nun's habits. Index had said something about the magician searching for the magic power of her walking church. That meant the magicians had been following Index by detecting the supernatural power in her walking church. They would have known the walking church was destroyed when the signal cut out. Index had mentioned that too, but then Index had to have known. She had known, but she still seemed to have relied on the defensive powers of the walking church. But then why had she returned? Why did she need to recover a portion of the destroyed and therefore useless walking church? Kamichu's right hand had rendered the entire walking church useless. So there was no point in recovering the hood to it. Then will you follow me to the depths of hell? Suddenly it all clicked. Kamichu remembered something. He had never touched the hood of the walking church that had been left in the room that had been left in his room. In other words, the hood still had magic power. So she must have thought the magicians might detect it and head there. And so Index had braved the danger to come back. You idiot. There had been no need to do that. It had been Kamichu's clumsiness that had destroyed her walking church. And he had realized she had left her hood in his room, And he had realized she had left her hood in his room, yet had left it there, and more importantly, Index did not have any obligation, duty, or right to protect Kamichu, even though she had not been able to help but head back. Kamichu Toma was a complete stranger she had met less than half an hour before. And yet she had not been able to help risk but her life and head back to keep him from getting involved in that fight with magicians. You idiot. Index's unmoving back got on his nerves for some strange reason. Index had told Kamichu before that his misfortune was due to his right hand. Apparently his right hand was subconsciously negating even the faint supernatural powers that were things like the divine protection of God and the red string of fate. And if Kamijo had not carelessly touched her and destroyed her walking church nun's habit, she would have at least not returned. No, those kinds of excuses don't matter. His right hand and the destruction of her walking church were not reasons she had felt the need to return. If Kamijo had not only wished for that connection, if he had not only returned her fallenhood, if he had not only returned that fallenhood to her in that instant. Come on, I can't have you looking at me like that. The cigarette in the corner of the magician's mouth waggled as he spoke. It wasn't me that sliced her, and I doubt Kanzaki meant to turn this into something bloody. The walking church is supposed to be an absolute defense. After all, really, she shouldn't have been injured at all by that. Honestly, what twist of fate led that being destroyed? Unless St. George's dragon had come again, I don't see how a Pope-class barrier could have been destroyed. That last bit had been spoken to himself, and his smile disappeared as he said it. However, that was also only for an instant. The cigarette in the corner of his mouth twitched back up as he had suddenly remembered to smile. Why? Kamijo had despite not expecting an answer. Why? I don't believe in the magic from fairy tales, and I don't really understand magicians or whatever you are, but aren't there good and evil types of you? Aren't there magicians that protect things and people? He knew very well that he had no right to use fox words here. When Index had left, Kamijo Tuma had let her go and gone back to his normal life, and yet he could not help but say it. You ganged up on this little girl, chased her all over the place, and then injured her this badly. Can you really say you're just with this reality staring you in the face? Like I said, it was Kanzaki that did this, not me. The magician paused for a second. Kamijo's words had not hit home with Kamijo's words had not hit home with him in the slightest, and whether she's injured or not, we have to retrieve her. Retrieve her? Kamijo did not understand what the magician meant. Oh, I see. You knew the word magician, so I assumed you had been fully filled in. I guess she was afraid of getting you involved. The magician exhaled cigarette smoke. Yeah, we need to retrieve her. Technically, it isn't her we need to retrieve, though. It's the 103,000 grimoires she had. There were 103,000 grimoires again. There were those 103,000 grimoires again. I see. This country is very religious. So I guess you don't understand, said the magician in a bored-sounding voice despite the fact that he was smiling. The Index Librorum Prohibitorum is a list created by the Church of all the evil books that will sully your soul just by reading them. Even if you announce that these dangerous books are out there, people can unknowingly acquire one if they don't know their titles. Thus, she has become something of a crucible of poisonous books with 103,000 such books. Oh, but be careful. Reading just one of the books she had would make you a vegetable out of someone from an irreligious nation like this. Despite what he said, Index did not have a single book. The lines of her body were clearly visible, not that the nun's habit, so it would be obvious if she was hiding any under her clothes, not to mention that no person could walk around carrying 100,000 books. That was an entire library's worth of books. Don't be ridiculous. And where exactly are these books? Oh, they're there, in her memory, said the magician as if it was obvious. Do you know what a perfect memory is? It seems to be the ability to memorize anything you see in an instant, I never forget even a single sentence or letter. Simply put, it makes you a human scanner. The magician smiled distinctly. It has nothing to do with our occult or your science fiction or your natural condition. She has been to the British Museum, the Louvre, the Vatican Library, the Pataliputra ruins, Chateau de Campagne. Campagne. I don't know how to speak French. But Mount Michel Abbey, Mount Saint Michel Abbey, and everywhere else that has grimoires that cannot be taken from where they are sealed. She stole them with her eyes and stores them as a grimoire library. Kamiju simply cannot believe it. Okay, wanted to check something. Okay, but what mattered was not if that was correct, but what mattered was that someone believed it was true and had sliced open a girl's back. While she had no ability to refine magic power herself, she's harmless. The cigarette in the corner of the magician's mouth moved happily. But since that stopper was repaired, the church must have some concerns. Well, that has nothing to do with a magician like me. At any rate, those 103,000 grimoires are quite dangerous, so I came to shelter her before anyone who would use them comes to take her away. Shelter her. Kamiju Tuma was utterly astonished. What had that man just said in the face of such a blood-red scene? Yeah, that's right, shelter her. No matter how sensible and good-hearted she may be, she cannot stand up to torture and drugs. The mere thought of handing a girl over to the likes of them hurts my heart, you know. Kamiju's body was trembling in places. It was not pure anger. Goosebumps covered his arm. The man before him viewed himself alone at night. He lived not seeing his own mistakes. All that put together sent a chill across Kamiju's entire body, like he had plunged into a bathtub filled to the brim with tens of thousands of slugs. The term mad cult oozed into his brain. The thought of magicians that hunted people based on groundless beliefs made him feel like the nerves of his brain were going to burst. Okay. Who the hell do you think you are? His right hand felt wrapped in heat as if in response to his anger. His 2 feet had been planted to the ground before he even thought about moving them. His thick body filled with flesh and blood charged toward the magician like a bullet. He clenched his right fist so hard he felt like he was smashing his fingers to pieces. His right hand was no use. It would not let him defeat even a single delinquent. It would not raise his scores on tests, and it would not make him popular with girls. But his right hand could also be quite useful. After all, he could use it to punch out the bastard standing before him. I would prefer to name myself Style Magnus, but I guess I'll have to go with Fortis 931. However, the magician was completely motionless except for the wagging of the cigarette in the corner of his mouth. After muttering something under his breath, he spoke to Kamiju as if introducing the pet black cat he was proud of. That's my magician name. Not familiar with those? It seems we magicians cannot give our true name when we use magic. It's an old tradition, so I don't really understand why myself. They were 15 meters apart. Kamiju filled half of that gap with just 3 steps. Fortis, I guess in Japanese that would be the strong, Well, the etymology doesn't really matter. What's important is that I've given that name. For us magicians, it is less a magic name for when we use magic and more like Kamijo Tuma took 2 more steps down the passageway. Even so, the magician's smile did not crumble. It seemed to be saying, Kamiju was not even an opponent worth getting rid of the smile over. Rid of his smile over. A killing name, I guess. The magician named Style Magnus grabbed the cigarette from his mouth and flicked it away to the side. The lit cigarette flew horizontally over the metal railing and hit the wall of the neighboring building. The orange line traced the cigarette's path as an after image, and sparks flew when it hit the wall, Kana's flames. The instant Style muttered that the orange line exploded. A sword of flames appeared in a straight line as if someone had turned on a fire hose loaded with gasoline. The paint gradually changed color like a picture being scorched by a lighter. He was not touching the flames, but it still felt like his eyes were being burned just by looking at it, so Kamiju instinctively stopped running and brought his hands up to cover his face. Kamiju stopped so suddenly that it looked like his feet had been staked to the ground. A sudden question entered his mind. The Imagine Breaker could negate any kind of supernatural power in one blow, not even the level 5 Buri Girl railgun that could destroy a nuclear shelter in one blow was an exception to that. But the truth was Kamiju had yet to see any supernatural power that was not Esper in nature. In other words, he had never tested it. He had never tested it on magic. Would his right hand really work on the strange power known as magic? Parisas Naupis Gebo, a gift of pain for the giant. Past his hands covering his face, Kamiju could see the magician smiling. While smiling, Style Magnus swung the blazing flame sword horizontally at Kamijo Toma. Due to peculiarities of the Japanese language, many of style spells contain words which have different pronunciations to what would normally been spoken. In the following passage, what Style says is kanaz, and what would normally had been said in parentheses. Okay. The instant it touched him, it lost shape and exploded in all directions like an erupting volcano. Heat waves, flashes of light, explosive noise, and black smoke burst in every direction. Maybe I overdid it. Style scratched his head in front of what looks like the aftermath of a bombing. Just be sure he looked around to see if anyone was coming out to see what was going on. It was the first day of summer vacation, so most of the residents of the boys' dorm would not be out. However, it would be bad if some friendless shut-in was in one of the rooms. He could not see directly ahead due to his screen of flames and smoke. However, he did not need to check. That strike had created hellish flames to 3,000 degrees Celsius. At temperatures higher than 2,000 degrees Celsius, the human body would melt before it burned. So the boy likely looked something like the metal railing that had been melted like a sugar sculpture. He was likely splattered across the dorm wall like a used piece of gum. Style gave a sigh as he reflected on how he had been to get the boy away from Index. Things would have been a little more difficult if the boy had used... Style gave a sigh as he reflected on how he had been to get the boy away from Index. Things would have been a bit more difficult if the boy had used Index's injured form as a shield. But he could not retrieve Index as things were. Style sighed again. The wall of flames blocked him from heading to the other end of the passageway where Index was. If there was another emergency staircase on the other side of the passageway, he could not manage. It would hardly be funny if Index got up in the flames while he took that detour. Styles shook his head in annoyance and spoke as he peered into the smoke one last time, as if he could see through it. Thank you, excellent work, and too bad. Well, at that level you couldn't even win if you could had 1,000 tries. Are you really so sure I could win no matter how many times I try? For an instant, the magician froze in place at the voice coming from those hellish flames. Even with a roar, the walls of flames and smoke swirled and was blown away. It was as if a tornado... Oh, let me check chat. Hi, Ricardo Heart Guy. It was as if a tornado had appeared in the center of the flame and smoke and blew them all away. Kamijo stood there. The metal railing had been melted... Oh, I already read that. Wait, did I? With a roar. Are you really sure? Are you really so sure I can win no matter how many times I try? For an instant, the magician froze in place at the voice coming from the hellish flames. With a roar, the wall of flames and smoke swirled was blown away. It was as if the tornado had appeared in the center of the flames and smoke blew them all away. Kamijo Thomas stood there. The metal railing had been melted like a sugar sculpture. The paint on the floor walls had peeled, and the fluorescent lights had melted and dripped down the intense heat. But that boy had remained unharmed in the middle of those hellish flames and scorching heat. Honestly, what was I so afraid of? Said Kamijo with the side of his mouth was twisted in disinterest. This is the same right hand that destroyed Index's walking church. Kamijo truly did not understand anything about what was known as magic. He did not know how it worked or what was going on where he could not see. Most likely he would not understand half of it if it was explained to him from start to finish. But there was one thing even an idiot like him knew. In the end, it was just supernatural power. The crimson flames had been blown away, had not been completely extinguished. It was a perfect circle around Kamijo. The scorching flames continued to burn, but out of the way. With that one statement, Kamijo touched the 3,000-degree magical flame with his right hand, and the rest of the flames vanished. It was like the candles in a birthday cake had been all blown out at once. Kamijo looked at the magician standing before him. The magician was as flustered as any normal human being at the unexpected turn of events. In fact, he was a normal being. If you punched him, he would feel pain, and if you cut him with a cheap knife, he would bleed red blood. Only notable due to a dragon imagery commonly associated with image breaker, but the Japanese word for tornado literally means winding dragon. He was a mere being. Kamijo's legs were no longer cramped with fear, and his body was no longer frozen with nerves. His arms and legs moved like normal. He moved. What? Meanwhile, Style very nearly took a step backwards in shock over the incomprehensible phenomenon before him. From what had become of the surroundings, the attack could not have been a dud. But it did not mean that the boy was powerful enough to withstand 3,000 degrees. No, then he would no longer be human. Kamijo paid no heed to Style's confusion. He clenched his heated right fist as hard as a rock and took a step towards Style, who was swaying on his feet. Okay, so I'm gonna put up a poll again. Read more tomorrow. Okay, so you guys can vote in the poll if you're still here and watching. You can vote in the poll to so if I can read, if you want me to read again, I'll post a poll on Twitter too. Okay, let me see. Yes. No. Okay. The poll is on Twitter too. I'll link the poll on Twitter. I mean, I'll link the poll here. That's on Twitter too. Don't you have a collab tomorrow? It is moved to Sunday. The collab is moved to Sunday. I just changed it. It's moved to Sunday. So if you want me to read more, please vote. Okay, yeah. Okay, sorry. Okay, let me read some more. What meanwhile style was very nearly took a step backwards in shock over the incomprehensible phenomenon before him. From what had become the surroundings, the attack could not have been a dud, but did not mean that boy was powerful enough to withstand 3,000 degrees. No, then he would no longer be human. Kamijo Toma paid no heed to Styles' confusion. He clenched his hated right fist as hard as rock and took a step towards Style, who was swaying at his feet. Style swung his right hand horizontally. The flames sword that appeared followed suit and flew forcefully toward Kamiju. It exploded, flames and smoke flew about. But after the flames and smoke were blown away, Kamiju Toma stood there just as before. Could he be using magic? Style muttered under the breath. He merely rejected the idea. There cannot be any magicians in that country that knew more about Christmas than magic, and only knew Christmas as a day of dating and sex. Also, if if Index had no magic power, had joined forces with a magician, she would not have needed to run away. That was how dangerous Index's memories were. Those 103,000 grimoires were a completely different level from merely having a nuclear missile. All living creatures would eventually die. An apple dropped from above would fall down, and 1 plus 1 equals 2. You would be able to take those kinds of natural, unchangeable rules of the world, destroy them, rewrite them, and create new ones. You could make 1 plus 1 equals 3, make an apple dropped from below fall up, and make all dead creatures eventually be revived. Magicians called such a being a magic god. Not a god, but not a god of the demon's world, but a magician who had thoroughly mastered magic to the point of entering a domain of God, a magic god. The Style could not feel any magic power in the boys in front of him. He would be able to glance if he was a magician. The boy did not have the scent of someone from the same world as him. But then why? The shuddering spread across his body. Style created another flame sword and attacked Kamiju. At this time, it did not even explode. Kamiju swatted the flame sword with his right hand as if as if, as if at a fly, and the flame sword shattered like glass and disappeared into thin air. He shattered that 3,000-degree flame sword with the right hand and had no magical reinforcements of any kind. Abruptly, truly abruptly, something floated in the back of Style Magnus's mind. Index's walking church nun's habit was Pope class, and its barrier rivaled a London cathedral in its power. And it was absolutely impossible to destroy unless the legendary dragon of St. George appeared, but Index's walking church had clearly been utterly destroyed since Kanzaki had sliced her. Who had done it, and how? Magic god is Majin, which could also mean demon god. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 more pages. By that point, Kamiju Tuma had walked right up to Style. With one more step, he would be close enough to punch the magician. MTWTFFTO, one of the 5 great elements from which the world is constructed. IIGOIIOF, the great flame of the beginning. And a pleasant sweat started flowing from Style's entire body. This was because the creature in a summer uniform before him had taken the form of a human. Style's spine trembled as he got the feeling that inside that boy's skin was not a flesh, that blood, but some strange oozing something. Okay, I won't say the letters. It is a light of blessing that raises the life, or should I say? It's the same. It is a light of blessing that raises life, and a light of judgment that punishes evil. It is overflowing with calm blessings and with freezing misfortune that destroys cold darkness. Its name is fire, and its role is the sword. Be manifested and become the power that eats into my body. The chest of Style's priest's habit swelled out with the power from within popped off the buttons. With the roar of flames sucking in oxygen, a giant mass of flames shot out from within his clothes. It was not merely a mass of flames. The crimson burning flames had something back and dripping like fuel oil. It was at its core. It was in the form of a human. The thing was reminiscent of the seabirds dripping with black fuel oil after a tanker accident and was internally burning. Its name was Innocentius. Its meaning was I will surely kill you. The giant flame god who bore the meaning of certain death spread his arms and charged toward Kamiju Toma like a bullet. Out of the way. Kamiju used a backhand blow with the annoyed attitude of someone brushing aside a spider web. Kamiju blew away Style Magnus's final trump card as if he had stabbed a water balloon with a pen. The human-shaped fuel oil, symbolizing a giant flame god, burst into spray and scattered about the area. Okay, Kamiju had no real reason for not taking his last step at that moment. It was simply that Style was still smiling despite having his final trump card destroyed. That expression was enough to make him hesitate before carelessly taking that last step. The sound of vicious liquid moving could be heard from all around. What? As Kamiju took a step back in surprise, the black spray returned from all directions, gathered in midair, and reformed into human shape. If Kamiju had taken the last step, he would certainly have been enveloped by flames from all directions. Kamiju's mind was thrown into disarray at the scene before his eyes. If his right hand could do what he was always saying it could negate even the systems of God, even amidst, in a single strike, had been the supernatural power known as magic, he should have been able to negate it with that one touch, and yet the fuel oil within the flames writhed, changed forms, and now seemed to be holding a sword in both hands. No, it was not a sword. It was a giant cross over 2 meters long, the type to crucify people. It lifted the cross up with both hands and swung it down toward Kamiju's head like a pickaxe. Kamiju immediately held up his right hand to receive the blow. Not counting his right hand, Kamiju was a simple high school student. He did not have the battle skill needed to see through the attack and evade it. The cross and his right hand clashed. This time it did not even disappear. As he was grasping a mass of rubber, Kamiju felt he was going to be the one to lose the struggle. His opponent he was using both hands while he could only use his right hand. The flaming cross approached Kamiju's face millimeter by millimeter. Despite his confusion, Kamiju just barely managed to realize one thing. The mass of flames, known as Innocentius, was definitely reacting to his image breaker. However, it was being revealed that it was being revived just after being annihilated. Most likely, the lag between annihilation and revival was less than a tenth of a second. His right hand had been sealed. If he let go for an instant, he would likely be turned into ash. But Innocentius in that instant, ruins. Kamiju Tuma heard something. Due to the danger in front of him, he could not turn around, but he internally heard someone's voice. Those 24 characters used to indicate mysteries and secrets have been used as a magic language by Germanic tribes since the 2nd century and are found in those roots of Old English. However, Kamiju could not believe it was Index's voice despite knowing it was. What? With how beat up and bloody she was, how could she be speaking so calmly? Attacking Innocentius will have no effect unless the ruined engravings carved into the walls, floor, and ceilings are eliminated. It will revive as many times as necessary. Kamiju Tuma grabbed his right wrist with his left hand and just barely managed to keep it crossed from advancing any further. Kamiju timidly turned around. The girl was indeed collapsed there, but Kamiju was unable to give the name Index to that like a machine. Her eyes were utterly lacking emotion. With each word she spoke, the blood flowed from the wound on her back. She paid no heed to that and seemed truly be nothing more than a system meant to explain magic. Your Index, right? Yes, I'm the Grimoire Library belonging to Necessarius, the Oath Parish, and the Anglican Church. My proper name is Index Librorium Prohibitorum. Prohibitorum. That can be abbreviated to Index. That's the way that Grimoire Library named Index was acting. The way that Grimoire Library named Index was acting. Kamiju almost forgot about the giant flame god trying to kill him. He felt like a chill coming from her. With my introduction complete, I will return to my explanation of runic magic. Simply put, it is like a reflection of the moon in the lake at night. No matter how many times you strike the lake surface with a sword, it has no meaning. If you want to strike the moon in the lake surface, you must return your sword to the real moon floating in the night sky. After hearing the explanation, Kamiju finally remembered the enemy in front of him. Did she mean that what stood before him was not the true form of supernatural power? Was this something like a photograph and its negative, and it would continue to revive unless he destroyed a different supernatural power that was creating the giant flame god? Even then, Kamiju did not completely believe what Index was saying. No matter what was going on around him, the common knowledge that magic did not exist refused to leave him. But the Innocentius scaling his right hand had and keeping him from moving, he could test anything regardless, and it would be difficult to ask Index to help him give her bloody state, ash to ash. Kamiju stood Kamiju looked up in shock from beyond the giant flame god. A flame sword had appeared in Styles' right hand. Dust to dust. Another one. A bluish-white burning flame sword extended silently from his left hand. Squeamish, bloody rude. With those power-filled words, he swung the two flame swords. He swung the two flame swords horizontally so they would slice straight through the giant flame god from left and right, and a giant pair of scissors. With his right hand sealed by Innocentius, Kamiju could not block anything else. Shit, I need to run. Before Kamiju could not even shout out, the two flame swords struck the giant flame god, and all turned into one giant bomb that exploded. Okay, so that's all I'm going to read for today. I hope you had fun with this read along. I will check the poll right now. Looks like it is a 67% yes, 33% no, and I will check the Twitter poll tomorrow or tonight. So anyways, have a nice day, everyone. Bye. Oh wait, I need to do name reading. Okay. We got Ricardo, Hart Guy, and Roy. Thank you for joining us. Anyone else? No. Okay. So thank you, Ricardo, Hart Guy, and Roy. You guys sent some nice emojis, patchy emojis. So yeah. Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye.